Hola, amigos, and welcome to the Center Bounce. I know this is a very different sort of intro. I had no idea what came over me, but I've gone with it. We digress. I'm here to give you my preseason team update just before the practice games. We've been pumping out a lot of videos talking about the various types of players that we are keen to see in the practice games, but thought it might be a good idea just to let you know where my team currently stands, as well as giving you a bit of a sneak peek in case something changes, especially in relation to the rookies. Stay tuned. So yes, we are starting off over here with the team. I've only just discovered that I can move my camera to a different spot. Getting used to getting better at this YouTubing business. The current team as it currently stands, starting off with the backline without further ado, we got one big Nick Dacos. I've spoken a bit about this guy. He is going to be D1. It's not a question of if, it's a question by how much, of course, barring injury. And as I've said a bunch of times on the channel, I want to start the players who I'm willing to start a player if they have an early buy, if I know I'm going to get something out of him, whether it be sheer value, whether it be the fact that these guys are going to be top of their lines anyway, and we're going to want to get them in. He's got his buy quite early on, and there's no way in the world I can't foresee myself being able to trade up and getting him right on time at around just coming off his buy. And he really could just pop off in the early season. Even if he does cop a tag, he might actually have a price rise before his price drops. So I'm going to go with Nick Dacos. I don't want to bet against this guy. He's so good, very talented. Almost won the Brownlow already last season. I'm not going to bet against him again. We had that exact same problem last year where we didn't start Nick Dacos because of the fear of a tag, and then look where that got us. So Dacos is in the side. I haven't gone Sicily. I have foregone him. I'm going with Tom Stewart because Sicily, I just fear that there might be some regression with a bunch of players eating into his scoring, mainly Amon, for example, Weddle. There's a lot of magnets being flipped around, almost Bevo style, almost at the Hawks. They know they're not challenging this year, and I think Sam Mitchell is on a fact-finding mission to see what his crop are made of. They've also added some extra players like Massimo D'Ambrosio, things like that, who could play off halfback. They played for us off halfback, and yeah, there's a lot of question marks over Sicily. I just feel like I can get him for cheaper. Whereas with Tom Stewart, all these reports about him playing in the midfield, I think, are a little bit unfounded. All of the track watchers, every time they see Geelong, they're seeing him playing off halfback where he's meant to be playing. And even where I've showed this a bunch of times on the channel, even where he's had games where he's had bulk CBAs, you look at his heat map, they're all off halfback. They're all in the back line. He might start at a centre bounce and then float back into the back line. And I don't think Geelong are going to be that great this year, which means even more supply for Tom Stewart. At D3 is still Hayden Young. This guy has never left my side. Definite value for that price. We then get to, I'm not going with a 4 premium backline. I am just going with the 3. Williams is in there. He also hasn't left the side. Someone who was in my very early team, went out because of injury, but is now back in, is Daniel Curtin. Really rate this kid super highly, as do the Adelaide Crows. Yes, he had some knee soreness, he had some knee problems, but I could tell that he was going to come back. He ran 7 kilometers in one of the training sessions before he started to feature in some match sims over there. He has gotten some really high praise, being likened to El Capitan Dawson. So Curtin, someone who could play off halfback, great reader of the ball, great mark and user of the football. They traded up to get him. I think this kid plays if he's fit, and I think he's fit. So Dan Curtin, you're in my side, as is Josh Kipkiss, who I think will be playing in round 0. He will play. I think he hasn't missed a session. He went overseas, got his body sorted out, and the guy is flying. So he he hasn't been out of my side. Neither has Zach Reed. This kid, high praise for him. Can't wait to see him. He's going to be part of the reason why we are going to jump up the ladder this year. Not putting any pressure on him, but the role he plays will be sensational. Nick Caulfield, whether it's him, whether it's Marty Hall, whether, whoever it may be in the back line at this point, we're obviously keeping a close eye on that. At this point, it just seems to be Nick Caulfield, who I think is ahead of other players like Keith and like Buku Kamis. So if he plays, he stays. We then move to the midfield. You all know my love for the Bonds. He's a superstar. He's worth it. He's going to be the perma captain every week. And he really should be M1 again. He's cleaned out his ankle and he's ready to fly. He was averaging some great scores, even with some gunk in his ankle. Now that those are gone, he's a free man. Zach Butters is still my M2 at this point. Again, nothing to suggest that this guy should regress. He's had a sensational end to the season last year, and it's only been glowing in the preseason. LDU stays in the side. There is definite upside at his price, given what he's shown that he's capable of performing. He hasn't missed a session in the preseason, and that's excellent. We know what he's going to be. He's going to be an inside mid. He's going to get bulk CBAs, and this is what I want. I want my midfield to be full of players who are going to get bulk CBAs, who are going to be mainstays in their midfield, and who are going to get a lot of points from contested possessions and knock-ons and things like that. So based on what you've heard there, so they've got the Bond leading the way in that. Butters going to be on the ball a lot. LDU going to be on the ball a lot. And when you think of on the ball, you can't not think of Tom Green. Tom Green is in my side. Like I said, I don't mind starting early buyer players if it means that they're going to give me something in return for missing out on a game. Tom Green, Nick Dacos, these guys, yes, they have early buy, but I'm so confident that these guys are going to be top of their line. People are going to have to trade them in eventually. And to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to get Tom Green, because he's got another awkward buy afterwards. And I'm sure that's going to plague a lot of people's minds, that they're going to be sitting thinking, oh, if you're avoiding him because of the buy and then you try and trade him afterwards, well, guess what? You're trading him in and he's going to miss out another game for you. So for me, Tom Green, lock and load from the start. I reckon this guy is going to be a top 8 mid. Someone who I also think could give the top 8 a fair shake is my boy DP3, Darcy Parish. You would have seen on the channel, I am very optimistic about this guy. He is flying in the preseason, by far and away our best performer. Even the captain, Zach Merritt, said that this guy has been best afield for our team by far. By far. He's in a great headspace. He's signed the contract. He's at the club. He's got married. His wife's pregnant. He's going to be a father. He's been made a life member of the Essendon Football Club. Everything is coming up Darcy Parish. And most importantly, he hasn't missed a session. Normally, in the last 2 years, we've seen that he's had a bit of injury, a bit of interruptions in his preseason, which eventually leads to some soft tissue problems, but he hasn't missed a beat in this entire preseason. Plus, he's not that age for me to worry about him when it comes to soft tissue injuries. Like LDU, he's not a beacon of health, but because these guys are young, I'm willing to bet on them to sort of be resilient when it comes to their bodies. I'm not going to pick someone who is over 30 and having these problems. Bless me. Apologies, guys. I hope you weren't wearing headphones for that. So Darcy Parish is in my side. He's a bit of a plot as well at 3%. I understand that it's great to be cookie cutter a bit. It's good to go with the pack on a lot of things, but sometimes you can't win it if everyone's got the exact same team. So I think Darcy Parish at his price presents great value. Another Essendon player who you all know I love to bits, 4%. It warmed my heart. I really hope this stays low. I really do, because then everyone's going to be scrambling to get him in. It is a Will Set a Goat situation all over again. Nick Martin flying, trying to keep his new role under wraps a little bit when he was interviewed. But it's clear as day for everyone who's been paying attention this preseason. He is playing off halfback. He's taking kick-ins, and he is roaming up the field a la Nick Dacos 2.0. Well and truly starting a play off halfback in the back line and then waltzing his way to the forward 50 and hitting the scoreboard. That is exactly what I want to see. He's an accumulator. This guy, I reckon, is going to be a top 8 defender at the end of the season, and to get him for sub 500k is glorious. So Nick Martin is in the side. We're going with a 6 primo midfield lineup, which I think does well to cover a Tom Green, who is the only one out of the six primos who has the early buy. I think that is a very fine structure. If you're going to start someone who has an early buy, I prefer that way. Also got Kobe McKercher, of course, as there is also Riley Sanders. These guys obviously have not left the side for not even a day. For 1 minute, they haven't left the side. Jeremy Sharp, as we mentioned, is clearly dominating on a wing. Got Sean Manor. I understand that he didn't play the full match sim in the senior in the preferred list, but he is a mature age player. Surely they give him a go. If he doesn't play, then that can easily be flipped to someone like a McCauley, for example. And I've also got Clay Hall, who from Adam Simpson himself can see him starting early. And he's been doing really well in the preseason, playing in the midfield, center bounces. Very nice. That's the midfield as it currently stands. We then move to the ruck, and ever since the early days where I had Cherry, who's been rucking in the B team, which is crazy to see. You got Max Gawn, of course, as Brody Grundy. Now, this is somewhere where I've gone a bit different. I haven't gone with Sweet. I've gone with Livingston. Livingston, not Finbar, because West Coast certainly are better suited for loopholes. They have a lot of games on Saturday and Sunday, whereas Finbar has a lot more earlier on in the week. If you're going to use a loophole, then definitely be Livingston. And I know I've said that I'm very much anti loopholes at R3, but that's only in the situation where we have a playing R3. Now, I don't know if Sweet is going to play week after week at Port Adelaide. You might have heard me dub Ken Hinkley a ruckman terrorist because he blows it up all the time, always chopping and changing. There's no consistency when it comes to the ruck. And there's always going to be competition at Port Adelaide with Vizentini, Sweet, and, of course, Soldo. They're only going to play one at a time. They're only going to play one at a time. They're not going to play multiple. They've got Finlayson. They've got Dixon. These guys can pinch hit in the ruck. They're not going to play two. And with that competition, I don't feel very confident paying $158, almost $160,000 for a Jordan Sweet who might not play week after week. I'd much rather use the money elsewhere on field to get me points. Now, Jordan Sweet is obviously the first option. Another one would be Toby Conway. He has to beat Reece Stanley to be that number one ruckman over there at Geelong. If he is, then obviously that changes things, which I will show you in a bit. But if he and Sweet are not going to be the number one rucks at their respective clubs, I'm not going to waste the money at R3. I'm just going to put a loophole and use my money to actually get me points elsewhere. Hope that explains things. We then move to the forward line, and I still have Sam Flanders. I'm very confident that this guy is going to be, again, yes, he's an early buy player, but I genuinely believe that this guy is going to be top of his line. He's going to be F2, F3, F1 perhaps, depending on the other DPPs that could arise during the course of the season. So I'm very confident on Flanders being a pick. Harms is in there, only going with the one premium in the forward line. I just think that this is a year where we can absolutely afford to go a bit cheaper, going with a bit of some mid prices there. The rookies aren't necessarily amazing to be fielding. There's not too many of them that you can confidently field week after week. But these guys, I think, are absolutely capable of scoring us a decent score without absolutely embarrassing us. And I don't mind going cheaper, waiting for the top six forwards to reveal themselves. And the top six forwards might not even be averaging that much in order to get to the top six. It could be in the 80s and the 90s to be a top six forward. So I'm going with only the one. And if they're not scoring very highly in the forward line, if they're only going 80s and 90s in the forward line, that means that their price isn't going to be very high, which means that it's going to be very easy to get them in a 1 down, 1 up upgrade. Whereas in the midfield, I'm stacking the midfield up with a bunch of, I think, top 8 caliber mids, because they're going to get really expensive and they're going to price people out. They're the ones that are going to have the big scores, and they're the ones that people are going to have to use boosts to 2 down, 1 up to try and get to these players. I'd much rather just start them. It is a very guns and rookie strategy, as you can see, with a bit of mid prices here and there, like a Williams, Harms, Billings, to sort of supplement the team, because I think that this is a year where we can, I think, stack these lines without and sacrificing the forward line. Last year was different. We had a lot of options in the forward line, all of which we probably needed to select, whereas this year we can be a bit more liberal with them. Harms, I think, could be playing a bit on the ball. Again, one that we really have to watch in the practice games, as we have to watch with Billings. They're 2 mid-prices who I think are underpriced compared to what they can give us. They haven't left my side. That's been normal. Harley Reid, Caleb Windsor, talked a lot about him. Very exciting player. If he plays, then I think he should feature very early. Line breaking ability. They love him to bits at Melbourne. Sexton playing off half back. If he has that role and is playing there, then he's going to give us a lot better scoring than his 133 price point. Wilson, he's going to play in round 1. I'm very confident about that, as will Cooper Simpson. So this is what the team looks like. Now, that is if, as I mentioned, that's if the rookies look bad, especially in the ruck line. But if I'm most likely to be, I can foresee a Conway being a more reliable R3 than a Sweet, just by virtue of the competition. So in order to get Conway, I don't have the money to do that. Something will have to give in the team. And this might seem crazy, but it is Tom Green, because of the early buy. If someone has to go of these primos, it's probably going to be someone who has an early buy. And I would free up by going for someone like a Matt Crouch, who appears to be in great form, appears to be going to be in the mainstays in the first rotation for the Adelaide Crows. Can see him going 105 to 110, which is very decent to hold for the season up until his buy, and then buy flip him to anybody to round out my primo midfield. So by using that money, I can then get Conway in here. And whilst I'm doing that, I also have the money. If Sean Manor, for example, doesn't get up because he didn't play in the A team for the match sim for Geelong for the whole game, if he doesn't make it up, then we could then go and get rid of him for a Matt Roberts on the bench, who could be playing off halfback for the Sydney Swans. Would obviously be very impressive, with a bit of money again to correct and to maybe upgrade any of the other rookies that I might have to. So that is what the team looks like. I'll leave it as such. Actually, I'll leave it as my current team is, with Tom Green in the side. If, like I said, things don't work out and these and we find that there is a playing R3 in Conway, for example, then I will change slightly the structure of my team, because the rookies dictate your structure, and the money that I can get from a playing R3, I've got Bontempelli to be my permanent captain, so I don't need any loopholes. If there is a genuinely valid playing R3, then I will be changing it up a little bit to make sure that I have them in my side. Otherwise, I'm going to use my money to have my very nice Tom Green, who I reckon will be top 8. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, was a rundown of my team, as well as the backup option if the R3 option makes itself available to us. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of my team. Am I going too early buy heavy for your liking? Yes, I am fading a bunch of these other popular selections of recent times, like an Elliot Yeo and a Nat Fyfe. For me, as you guys might have been able to pick up from what I was saying, I am not a fan of starting injury-prone players who are not young anymore. Especially if you are over 30, there is always a regression, especially if you're playing in the midfield. And I want to be confident that my players are actually going to play out a game and not going to, blow up on me. I don't want to go into every week nervous and hoping and praying that these players can actually last a game to make me my cash. I'd much rather start these premiums as opposed to these money makers that are really speculative. I understand that there is some scoring behind them in the past, but we're not living in the past. We're living in the present. And I can't help but feel that it is an unnecessary risk to take, and one that I think will definitely sour your season if the injury comes in round one. And then you're going to waste a trade to sort of try and fix that up. Much rather go for a premium, and in the event that the premium gets injured and fails, then I can at least sideways them to another premium who is doing fine. And with that, guys, I really hope you understood what I'm going for. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you like what you saw, drop us a like and a subscription. Would greatly help the growth of our channel, which we have absolutely been enjoying. Your engagement has been sensational, and we're really glad to see that a lot of you are liking the content that we're pumping out. Ultimately, it is for you guys as well. So as long as you keep engaging and you keep giving us some likes, it means that we are doing the right thing in doing the hard work so that you guys don't have to. I'll see you all in the next one.